The second season of Euphoria just finished airing, and per usual, I have thoughts. Euphoria is one of those shows that's very popular both in viewership and discourse on the internet, and is especially popular among Gen Z, which makes sense because most of the characters are high schoolers. How we're supposed to believe that Nate Jacobs is in high school is beyond me, but that's beside the point. I am intrigued by Euphoria, but I'm not as much of a rabid fan as some people seem to be. Maybe it's because I'm one of those people who falls on the cusp between millennials and Gen Z, so I can't relate to some things as well as younger viewers, but I try my best to relate to the youths.
I love the young people.
As someone who loves the art of television, I try to view each season of a show through multiple lenses. On a technical level, through the writing, directing, cinematography, acting, etc., and on an emotional level. Is this show eliciting strong feelings from me, one way or the other? As with any season of any show on television, Euphoria Season 2 had high points and low points. I'll go through the noteworthy elements of each episode and then give my opinions on the season as a whole. Obviously, major spoilers ahead. So Episode 1 is chaotic as hell. And based on the IMDb rating for this episode, most viewers seem to like the chaos. This episode is the second highest rated episode of the series thus far, and unfortunately, I wasn't super into it. Now, I'm not against a show going batshit bananas. In fact, many times it leads to a whole lot of fun, but it needs to be organized chaos, and to me, episode 1 felt pretty disorganized. My opinion is that Euphoria is at its best when it's stripped down and introspective. The two special episodes that aired between season 1 and 2 are some of the best Euphoria content out there, and I was hoping they would start season 2 with a similar tone, but alas, they did not. Most of the reason I don't like it is because it feels like many things are done for shock value instead of serving a purpose. For example, Euphoria is known for its graphic nudity, and I have no problem with nudity in movies and TV as long as it serves a purpose and is done tastefully. Some of the nudity in this season is done just because they can. You can't tell me seeing a dude's ding-a-ling while he sits on the toilet serves any creative purpose. The whole party is overwhelming. And I understand that we need to reintroduce the characters and set them on their arcs for the season, but when I feel exhausted halfway through an episode, the chaos is getting to be a bit much. Maybe I'm just too lame to be able to enjoy a high school party.
Mom, can you pick me up? I'm scared.
I do appreciate that we get an insight into Fezco and Ashtray's past, which gives us a better understanding of their relationship to each other and their grandma, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't know how much of a purpose it really serves. The audience is already aware of how close Fez and Ash are, and the relationship with their grandma doesn't factor into the story whatsoever. In relation to the plot and events of Season 2, the season would be exactly the same whether it was included or not. One thing I really enjoyed was the introduction of Martha Kelly as Lori the drug dealer. There's something very satisfying about the juxtaposition of her soft-spoken, almost motherly demeanor with the nastiness of her business and actions. It's the same thing that makes Gus Fring such an intriguing and captivating villain. Okay, on to Episode 2. Episode 2 deals a lot with Cassie being messy, and it's fine. I'm really more interested in what's going on with Rue and Jules, but the stuff with Cassie and Nate isn't uninteresting. We also get one of the very few insights into Kat's life here, which is that she's bored with Ethan. That's kind of her whole character arc this season, which is kinda lame. Her character takes a backseat and doesn't get much to do, which is one of the risks you run with a show that contains so many characters. It's also nice to get some Ali in this episode. His character likes to impart a lot of wisdom, and I like it when he shows up. Okay, so after 2 episodes, I have to be honest, I wasn't super psyched. Season 2 was off to a pretty tepid start. Episode 3, Insight into Cal's Past. I can appreciate this flashback a little more, because it actually works to further explain Cal's motivations and general conduct, making his actions later seem completely logical. And here is where the season starts to do its creative thing and separate itself from the slew of other shows out there. I love it when Euphoria gets unique. And it does that in episode 3 when it brings back Rue with the slide projector to give context to the audience. It's a fun and entertaining way to give exposition, and I'm fully here for it. Also, Lexi's play. When Lexi says that she views her life almost as an outsider, and it transitions from her real life to it being displayed as a soundstage where her life is being created like a show, I absolutely love it. It really speaks to the film and TV nerd in me, and it sets up the play that will become prominent later. Cassie continues to be messy, and once again, it's fine. Rue, Jules, and Elliot all hang out, and I have some problems with Elliot's character.
Elliot.
He doesn't feel fully three-dimensional, and is just kind of a prop to be a wedge between Rue and Jules. Rue takes a ton of drugs from Lori, which you would hope would come back around later, but it doesn't. Her addictions and behavior lead her to say some spiteful things to Ali, which hurts when you know the context from the Trouble Don't Last Always special episode. Point on the emotional level. Okay, episode 4. We get a little artsy and creative at the beginning to expound on Rue and Jules' relationship. I can dig it. Elliot and Jules get a little too close, proving once again that Elliot is a prop wedge. Cassie turns her messiness up to 11, and it's delightfully horrifying to watch. Rue's relapse finally gets the better of her and Jules' relationship, and things begin to spiral. This is the kind of drama I'm here for. Our dive into Cal's past becomes relevant in the present, and he makes a major shift in the trajectory of his life. I like this because Nate's behavior has always been somewhat informed by his relationship with his father, and Cal leaving will have repercussions on Nate's future decisions and actions. I could do without McSteamy's McPeepee hanging out of his pants for the entire scene, though. Like I said, sometimes the explicit nature of the show is done just for shock value. Now, episode 5. Holy hell. This is most definitely Euphoria at its best. We take a moment away from all the extraneous drama of our secondary and tertiary characters to focus on the implosion of our main character, Rue. Remember when I said Euphoria is its best self when it strips itself down and goes back to basics? That's what this episode does, and it's glorious. Vincent, we happy?
Yeah, we happy.
Watching Zendaya kick a door in made me feel alive. The audience is treated to an incredibly horrifying display of how Rue's addiction and subsequent withdrawal works to tear her family apart as well as destroy the lives of those around her. Rue eventually ends up with Lori, who gives her morphine, and it never really comes back up later, so what's it all been about?
Whoop-de-doo! What does it all mean, Basil?
Episode 6. We see some more of the nasty effects of withdrawal, which is what this show needs. Show us both sides of the evil coin that is addiction. Ali makes an appearance and shows his immense capacity for forgiveness. Another emotional point. Kat and Ethan break up. Wow, shocking. Their relationship was given about 3 seconds of thought for this whole season. Fezco and Lexi's lives become more intertwined. I'm torn on how I feel about them. On one hand, you would think that Lexi would be smart enough to know that getting involved with Fezco could only lead to trouble. On the other, it makes sense that the quote-unquote good girl of the show would be fascinated and drawn to someone so different than herself, especially when Fezco is the only person to really be kind to her. Also, they watched Stand By Me, which is a phenomenal film, so bonus points. The show starts to build tension about a huge police raid on Fezco, which pays off well later, so good on them. Nate behaves like a complete psychopath in order to do something that's in his own self-interest, but also ends up doing something nice for Jules in the process. Interesting character development. I'm intrigued. Episode 7. Remember when I said I like it when Euphoria gets creative? Well, now we get the creative payoff to Lexi's play, and it's wonderful. I love the idea of not only reaching into the past and detailing deeper character traits and relationships through the play, but also progressing the plot forward and pushing tensions to the brink. I also just love that Lexi's character is getting more fleshed out and given more screen time this season. Lexi's my favorite character, and the one I relate to the most. She's pretty much the only normal person in our core group of characters, except for maybe Ethan, and you need these types of characters to give context to the insanity going on around them. I saw a review of Euphoria that called Lexi annoying, and I'd like to say that I take offense with that. If you enjoy the other characters but find Lexi annoying, you need to take a long, hard look in the mirror, buddy. Will I say that the ending musical number got to be just a little bit over the top for me? Yeah. Do I also think that the theater budget of this public high school is suspect? You bet. But this episode was really good, and my second favorite of the season. Episode 8, the big finale. I have mixed feelings. The police raid on Fezco and Ash comes to fruition, and it pays off well. It's totally in line with Ash's character to get himself killed in that situation, and it'll be interesting to see its effects on Fez down the road. Cassie remains a mess. She's a little bit one note this season. Nate gets back at his father by informing the cops of Cal's misdeeds. Cool. More character development for Nate. Elliot sings a whole song to remind us that he's still a character. Sorry, bud, you're still two-dimensional. Lexi's play continues throughout the whole episode, and I have to be honest, I felt like it was starting to overstay its welcome. It was a fantastic idea for episode 7, but continuing it through 2 entire episodes feels excessive. Rue and Lexi rekindle their friendship. Jules gets sidelined in the latter half of the season, which sucks because she's a compelling character. And now we get to my biggest issue, which is that Rue taking the suitcase of drugs from Lori and never paying her back doesn't come back by the end of the season. Why would you set that up if you weren't going to have consequences later? Lori specifically told Rue that if she screwed her over, she would kidnap her and sell her to some pretty sick people. And I know we learned in episode 5 that Lori might be a little more lenient than we had initially thought, but it doesn't mean that she didn't mean what she said in episode 3. Rue is supposed to pay up in a month. There's no way a month hasn't gone by, and the drug dealer just isn't looking to recoup her funds? Even if they plan on revisiting this point in season 3, this is an arc that you need to wrap up in the same season that you set it up. It's not very satisfying to have such a large loose end at the end of a season. Okay, now that I've gone through each episode, let me give the broad strokes. I think that Euphoria Season 2 can get a little too chaotic and messy for its own good, but when it flexes its introspective and creative muscles, it really shines. Certain characters, such as Kat, get shoved to the side to make room for others, and new characters like Elliot can feel more like plot devices than real characters. Zendaya and Hunter Schafer put in great performances, and the cinematography, per usual, is amazing. Most elements on a technical level work great, except for some writing issues throughout. On an emotional level, the season got me emotionally invested in Rue and Jules, which is a success. With the secondary characters, my emotional investment was hit or miss. In the end, I'll have to say that after a slow start for me, I ended up thinking that it was fine. The highs were very high, but there were also a number of lows for me, too many to ignore. I'll give it a 3.5 stars out of 5, and I'll probably tune in for season 3 whenever it premieres. I'm a little afraid that the show will keep Rue in a constant cycle of relapse, recovery, rinse, and repeat, which could start to feel repetitive, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to go blast some In Excess in your toxic masculinity Jeep.